What's up, guys? It's Joey, and we're back again, this time talking about week 3 matchups. And I'm joined again by Luke and Ian. Luke, you can find him on Instagram at the Fantasy Football Analyst Instagram. He also has his own, what is it, Fantasy Analyst Luke, I believe it is on
Yeah,
Instagram. I made it
I
for
think
you.
it might be
so
an
I should-
underscore.
We'll get it figured out. It'll be the caption. But you can also find Ian on Twitter at IanGridley_FFA. It says it right under his name there. There you go. He's been doing a lot on Twitter, so guys, go follow him there and check that out. Yesterday, Patriots fan, I just want to jump straight into exactly how I'm feeling with this recap with the Jets and the Patriots. I'm a sad man today. I thought the Patriots were building something. I saw week 1 beating the Bengals, and I'm like, all right, this is good. We're on a good path. Last week, we take the Seahawks to overtime, and I'm like, okay, we're competitive. This is good. This is better than I thought it was. And then for the first time since 2015, the Jets beat the Patriots in their home stadium at MetLife. So very unfortunate for me. Aaron Rodgers looked pretty sharp yesterday for a 40-year-old man. And interestingly enough, Garrett Wilson had his first touchdown of the season. And fun fact I've been reading is that was Aaron Rodgers in his entire NFL career first touchdown to a first-round wide receiver in his entire career. Kind of crazy to get to this point and not have one of those. But what are some of your takeaways from yesterday's game, Ian? I want to hear your thoughts on maybe the Patriots side of the football and the Ramondre Stevenson running into that brick wall, essentially stopping whatever we thought was going on with him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is a kind of a case of like they faced a really good defense and we saw the holes in that offense. It's not always going to be that bad. We do see that offensive line play gets better as the season goes on, and defenses usually have the advantage early in the year. The shortening of the preseason has really affected football. The first 4 weeks are effectively the preseason. And Bill Belichick has even been on record saying like he didn't really care about the first 4 weeks of the season in terms of like win-loss and cared more so about like the direction the team was headed in those like Patriots dynasty years. Not comparing this Patriots team to those Belichick teams, just sort of in the way of that offenses are still catching up to speed. Offensive lines are gelling. Quarterbacks are finding their rhythm. I mean, the Patriots team has a bad offensive line and they don't have a lot of weapons. And it's pretty easy to clue in that they want to stop you on offense and run the ball and run the clock down. That's their game plan. And then they're trying to kind of win games on vibes. And unfortunately, vibes are not a trackable stat. And you can't, as much as you want, as many brick walls as you want to run through for Gerard Mayo, it's not going to win you any games. What I will say, though, on the positive side of it, Christian Gonzalez looks fantastic. Like he is right up there with Sauce Gardner as like the most electric young corners in the game. He shadowed Garrett Wilson, I believe, on 95% of the snaps. He held him to 4 targets for 2 catches. And even that touchdown that Garrett Wilson caught, that was more so a perfectly placed ball by Rodgers than anything else. So there are things to be excited about. Fantasy-wise, there's nothing to be excited about on the Patriots side.
And it's interesting too. Even that touchdown is more of an outbreaking route, and like for DBs, that's one of the hardest things to cover when it's just like the one cut, and it's like, especially when it's that close, you just really don't have time to react. So it's
if that ball is a foot or two lower than where it was, that's a pick six.
Yep.
Rodgers threw it in the perfect spot, perfect anticipation. And that's what an elite quarterback does. And the Patriots ran too high safety, and they still let up 24 points. So Mel Kiper, choke on that.
Now, Luke, from the Jets side of the football, what are we taking away from last night's game? Is this the start of something big for Garrett Wilson? Does this offense run through its running backs? What the Tyler Conklin for finally doing something when we thought he was dead in the water? What are your thoughts on this Jets offense going forward?
Yeah, a lot of takeaways from this game, in a sense, I guess, on both sides of the ball, actually. I mean, Jets defense from a fantasy perspective was a lot of the first defenses off the board in a lot of leagues. I think they started to show that they're a real defense again after struggling a bit even against the Titans last week. Calvin Ridley kind of tore them up. But yeah, this week they looked better. 3 points against an admittedly less talented Patriots offense, but still looked great out there. On the offensive side of the ball, we mentioned Garrett Wilson getting that first touchdown in. The running backs, as you said, looked good. Breece Hall, I don't know what to think. Braylon Allen's starting to eat into that workload a little bit. A lot earlier than I expected and a lot more than I expected. So we'll see if this continues. I don't see Allen getting many more touches than he did in a game like last night that wasn't close. But it's definitely something to monitor. I mean, Braylon Allen scored last week. He had a decent week this week, especially usage-wise. So something to keep your eyes out for.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see a rookie like that break out and have that kind of impact. But when you already have Breece Hall there, it makes things kind of complicated. So those are our thoughts from last night's game. I want to move on into a little bit of a guessing game here. So I mentioned it briefly. I want to see if you guys can guess the current top 5 at each position, and we'll go one by one. So Ian, give me a guess for a top 5 quarterback right now.
You know, and it's
They're
only
2
because
weeks.
I have him in one league. But, I mean, Derek Carr's got to be there, right?
Yep, Derek Carr, currently the quarterback 2 for fantasy football right now.
Yeah, man. I had that on my bingo card.
Luke, what about you? Give me another guess.
I think I can nail the QB1 here.
Okay.
With Baker Mayfield.
That's right. Baker Mayfield at 1, Derek Carr at 2. Who would have thought up to this point? Ian, back to you. Can you name another quarterback in the top 5?
I don't think Sam Darnold's done enough, but that would be a fun name. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, right?
Kyler Murray, quarterback 4. So right now we're missing 3 and 5. Luke, back to you.
Josh Allen had a really good week 1. He had a less good week 2. I'll run with Josh Allen anyway.
Nope, outside the top 5 currently.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep points here just because I think it's funny. So Ian, that's 2 points for you, and that's 1 point for Luke. All right, Ian.
I know Lamar is like top 5 in passing yards. So Lamar
is right. Lamar's number 5.
Okay.
So that leaves one more. The number 3 quarterback right now, Luke.
Oh boy, Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, it is.
There we go.
Okay, so now let's move on to running backs. Remember, we're talking PPR here. So I think, Ian, you led off the first one. Luke, why don't you lead off this one for running backs?
All right, let's go with JK Dobbins.
Number 4.
That is crazy.
Okay. I know, right? Who would have thought? 2024,
yeah.
JK Dobbins, a top 5 running back through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The Lord's year 2024. Got to be Devon Achane.
Devon Achane, RB2 currently.
Yeah.
Luke, back to you.
I'll take the gimme, Alvin Kamara.
Yep, that's the RB1.
This might get tough. Joe Mixon had a really big week 1. I'm going to say Joe Mixon.
Nope, outside the top 5.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Now it gets tricky.
It does a little bit.
I'll go with Jordan Mason.
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
There is a pretty obvious one.
I'm sure there is. I probably don't have him on any of my teams for whatever reason. So
that's probably true.
You're gonna think of it and you could be like, "Oh, duh."
Oh my god, I don't even know any running backs in the NFL. That's where I'm at. I don't know a single running back that plays in the league. Brian Robinson Jr.
Nope.
No.
Back to you, Luke.
Let's go with the guy that Ian almost beat me with last week, James Cook.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Nope.
I'm just
still missing
upset
3 and 5. Give you guys one more guess each to see if we can get something rolling. I'm gonna say it. You're gonna be like, "Oh, how the fuck did I not think?"
Oh, I know. Like, oh my god.
I didn't think we.
Who's been cooking right now? Like, yeah, James Cook was like the obvious one that I could not think of. Right we're not looking at like James Conner or anybody, right?
Nope.
No, that's not even a good guess, but
All right, Luke, take your last guess here.
Saquon Barkley.
Yes, that's the obvious one I was thinking of. Who had a
Okay.
big 3-touchdown game that first week?
That's true.
he's dead to me. He's dead to me. I don't think
He's dead to you. I don't talk to him anymore. And the number 5 running back right now is Breece Hall, actually, not even including week 3.
Really?
Breece Hall, yeah, consistency-wise, he's been getting a lot of pass-catching work. He's had over, I think, 40 or 50 yards receiving each of the first 2 weeks. And I think he has 1 or 2 touchdowns under his belt. So, I mean, not including last night. So, Breece Hall.
I had
moving on to
Bijan.
wide receivers.
Sorry.
Yeah, Bijan with no touchdowns is kind of throwing me off too, because he's been a monster in terms of touches, but just the touchdowns
and efficiency too. You know, like he's looking at like 18-ish carries or less and almost 100 yards in each game, but just the no touchdowns is really hurting him.
Well, next on to wide receivers. Ian, lead this one off.
All right, wide receivers got to be Nico Collins.
Nico's number 2.
Chris
Luke?
Godwin.
Chris Godwin is actually number 1 right now.
Wow, Godwin at number 1.
Yeah.
There's no way Jaden Reed sneaks in there after week 1, right?
He does. He's the wide receiver
Really?
5 right now.
Yep. I'll take
Crazy
our guy Malik
cool.
Neighbors.
And Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 3. You're just missing the wide receiver 4.
Cup?
And it's Cup.
Yeah.
You guys
Nice.
are fucking on
Big
it,
week
the wide
ones.
receivers. All right, last one is tight ends, and if you guys are
boy.
able to guess this tight end 1, I'll be very surprised. Luke, you lead it off.
I'm not going to attempt tight end 1 right now. I'm just going to go for Trey McBride, who's had 2 solid weeks.
Trey McBride, tight end 4.
He's Brock Bowers, right?
Brock Bowers, tight end 2.
He's not tight end 1?
Wow.
Nope.
You got to be kidding me. What?
Nope.
Oh, all right. Isaiah Likely riding on that
Is
week
the
1 game.
tight end 1.
Wow.
Still,
That's unbelievable.
after
have
that
one big
huge
team as a
week
tight end.
1. Yes, that's how easy it is to be a top 5 tight end. Isaiah Likely is currently the tight end 1.
He's
we
probably
say
going
tight
to be
end
in
3
the
and
top 5 for another 5 weeks because of that.
As long as he gets mediocre production, like give him like 40 yards the next 2 weeks, he'll still be top 5 tight end easily.
That's
All
incredible.
right, 3 and 5.
Does Hunter Henry sneak in there?
He does. Tight end
He does.
5, exactly. So just missing the 3, Luke.
All right. I know who the tight end 2 was after week 1, but I really don't want to guess him because I think he got 0 points last week. So I'm trying to think of somebody else, but I can't think of anybody else.
So just guess who you're thinking.
Foster Moreau.
No,
Was the tight end 2 after
that would have
week
been
1.
fun though. That would have been very.
He was
fun.
the tight end 2 after week 1. I promise. Look it up.
I think we brought it up on the show and I didn't even know it, but Foster Moreau gang, stand up.
Whoever you are out there.
Exactly. I know you're out there. Not Gesicki, right? He doesn't get in there.
Nope.
Hmm.
I'm counting
Yeah.
that as a guess, by the way.
They called back his touchdown in week 1. If he catches that,
They
he
did.
might be top 5.
He's definitely in there if he catches that.
Pat Fryermuth.
Nope. There's another semi-obvious name that we're just like, oh, he had a big week. How did I not think of him?
Tight ends having big weeks. That doesn't. It's not computing right now.
You just need one. Just need one.
Oh my
He
god.
may not play week 3.
Zach Ertz? Is Ertz in there? I mean, I know he's a big name. He's not a big fantasy name.
All right, Luke, take your last guess.
I don't know, man. Let's see. Kyle Pitts.
Nope. George Kittle.
Oh,
of
right.
course.
I have 0 shares of George Kittle this
Me
year.
too.
So
He actually had a pretty good week last week, and I think he had a
Yeah, he
respectable
did.
week 1 as well. So he's currently a top 3 tight end behind Isaiah Likely and Brock Bowers.
Should have got there.
Crazy enough. So that was good. I mean, you guys exactly tied 9-9 as far
Nice.
as guesses.
all right, there we go.
If one of you said George Kittle, that would have been the icing on the cake. But we're around here, so yeah, just a little fun game, and it also kind of serves as a reminder of like, guys, it's week 2. do not overreact. Isaiah Likely is still the tight end one, and he might even be back on waivers for a lot of people right now. Jaden Reed.
If you're in my leagues, he's to the moon. Like, offer me trade for him.
For Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. Offer me the moon for Isaiah Likely. I'll take it.
Please do. He's the tight end one. Share this video.
He's the tight end one. I promise, dude. Trust me.
Yeah, trust me, bro. But yeah, all right. So I just wanted to close that out and just let you guys know again that like do not overreact to the first 2 weeks. Obviously, this is subject to change. I want to bring this back in like another 2 weeks and just be like, oh, see how much it changed since then. Hopefully, Derek Carr and Baker still aren't the top 2 quarterbacks because that would be absolutely crazy. But one thing I do want to do is get into our picks for this week. So as I mentioned last week, rather than going over every single matchup like we have done in the past, each of us has picked 3 to 4 players that we really are excited to talk about, whether it's good or bad, just kind of hyper-focusing on their matchup for this week. So that being said, I will lead it off with my first player, which is Jaylen Warren. Let me take this off in case this becomes a clip. So Jaylen Warren, in his first week, he was definitely not 100%. But he still went out there. He wasn't able to do much on the ground. He didn't get a ton of touches. He wasn't involved. He wasn't part of the offense, really. But last week, he outsnapped Najee Harris. It looks like he's back to full health. He had 4.7 yards per carry. And he's got a great matchup this week against the Chargers, who, other than the 2 edge rushers that they have, they're pretty weak up front. They don't have much going on in the linebacker position. So I think it's going to be really easy for a guy like Jaylen Warren to get to that second level, make some big plays. Last week he ripped off an 11-yard run, which doesn't sound that much, but Najee Harris had a much worse week as far as efficiency goes. So yeah, Jaylen Warren's a guy who, for me, I loved going to the season. And I think for a matchup like this, if you're desperate this week for running back to plug in with all the injuries and so forth, I don't think he's a bad play this week at all. So Jaylen Warren, also a buy low candidate for me as well. So big Jaylen Warren guy. But Ian, why don't you go into your first guy for this week?
So my first guy, this is going to be super obvious. But I know there's some people panicking. I've tried to buy low in a couple leagues already, but Ja'Marr Chase. And obviously you're going to start Ja'Marr Chase, but this is my start of the week. I would have him as a top 3 receiver if I, took the time to do my weekly rankings every single week. Washington is the fantasy depot store. They give away points. They made Daniel Jones look competent last week. That's a really hard thing to do. Malik Neighbors is now within, I think the top 10 wide receivers in the league because of essentially one gigantic game with 18 targets. They let Wan'Dale Robinson score. And then in week 1, I saw this viral thing going around Twitter where somebody started every single starting player on the Bucks and they won their fantasy league or their matchup that week. Washington gives up points to everybody. They do not discriminate. They have no shutdown corners. They have a mediocre pass rush. They have Bobby Wagner, who outside of filling a gap, hasn't, even according to PFF, just has not been able to cover a receiver in 6 years, and he still keeps getting paid. Everybody on the Bengals should be in your starting lineup, but Ja'Marr Chase, to the moon this week.
I agree with that. I think it's a point where he's had a slow start. He honestly doesn't even look like he cares going into the season and his attitude the first 2 weeks, but this is just too good of a matchup, and all he needs is the ball. So that's something that has not been lacking. Joe Burrow has been targeting him a ton. It's just a matter of the production that comes after those catches. So that's a good spot to get it. Luke, who's your first guy this week?
Yep. I'm going to go to Rams 49ers to talk about Colby Parkinson. I apologize for the lack of stats on this one, but there's really not much to say. Who else is getting the ball is basically all there is to say. He has to throw the ball to Colby Parkinson a little bit at the very least, with no Cooper Kupp, at least for the foreseeable future, no Puka Nacua. Demarcus Robinson will see his looks, I'm sure, maybe get Tyler Johnson involved. Colby Parkinson will also be involved. Those are your 3. There's nobody else to throw the ball to, and that's really all there is to say. The Niners secondary isn't the greatest either, so that's something to note as well.
Are you not a fan of the Jordan Whittington or Tutu Atwell route? Because for me, the way I look at this Rams receiving group is that Demarcus Robinson is going to continue to play the Demarcus Robinson role. So whether Kupp and Puka are healthy or not, Demarcus Robinson is always going to play the same role. There might be more opportunity for targets without those guys there, but his role is not going to change. Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington are going to share that Puka type role, to where they're going to play in his place on the offense. And the Tutu Atwell is going to come in and be that Cooper Kupp. So if for me, the person I'm not in this offense I'm looking for is Tutu Atwell, because in the beginning of last year as well, Tutu actually was getting pretty good production with Cooper Kupp hurt and Puka Nacua kind of finding his role in this offense. And obviously he did that very quickly. But Tutu was also a pretty viable fantasy option in the beginning of last year. So for me, I think Tutu's the guy I'm looking at. But I understand Colby Parkinson. He's actually been kind of a quietly good player. He was on the Seahawks as a depth piece, stuck behind Noah Fant and Will Dissly and some other guys over the last 3 or 4 years. But every year, every offseason, Pete Carroll talked up Colby Parkinson as this great player who just kind of needs a chance to shine. So right now he's got it with Tyler Higbee on pup. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I
Ian,
will
you have any thoughts about that?
I will say Tutu Atwell is more of that, as you said, Cooper Kupp run after catch guy. And I just think the difference from last year is that Colby Parkinson can wear more hats than Tyler Higbee can. I think Parkinson, you could get the ball in his hands and he can move a little bit and he can run down the field and act like a receiving tight end as well. So I just think the versatility is more there with him than Higbee, who's more of your go up and get it guy.
Yep.
And I think, again, just wide open targets here. So someone's got to get them.
Sweet. Ian, you have any thoughts on the topic?
Calling Tutu Atwell Cooper Kupp, but I know we're not doing that. Irks me a little bit. Yeah.
They're basically twins. They look the same.
Yeah. Brother from different mother type of stuff, But the thing is, he can run after the catch, and he can be used as more of a gadget guy, but the value of Cooper Kupp is the reliability of the targets. It's not 100%. Necessarily the yards after catch. That's sort of what makes him that extra tier of elite when he's healthy. I think I more so lean towards, and you're right, it's kind of like Tyler Johnson or Whittington, and I think that's going to get solved out in practice as to who gets a bigger share of the snaps. But essentially, it's going to be who steps into that productive, I can target you no matter what situation type of role. Because you're right. I don't think Demarcus Robinson's role is going to change. Maybe he sees a few more targets, but he's going to be in that 6 to 9 range every game. He's really just touchdown dependent. It's really just who can handle the volume, because Matt Stafford's going to need a guy that he can go to.
Yep. And that's one of the things. So that was one of the things I was thinking too, is Matt Stafford perennially has been a quarterback that just kind of relies on certain guys. And it's once he has his guy, he has his guy. And Cooper Kupp has obviously been that guy. Puka Nacua turned into that guy last year. So if you could find that guy without either of those two, that'd be a great thing, and they will prosper. But until that point, we wait and see.
It is tough. Yeah.
It is definitely tough. Going into my next matchup here, my next player is JK Dobbins going against the Steelers. So I am starting to fall off the JK Dobbins train a little bit here. He's had 2 very easy matchups for his first 2 weeks against the Chargers and then the Panthers, who, of course, you can just run all over and do whatever you want to. But he was outsnapped by Gus Edwards last week, which, again, a little grain of salt because they were up big in that game. Both of them had 18 touches. But the thing with the Steelers defense is they kept Bijan under 4 yards per carry. We talked about his efficiency earlier, but this is one of the games where, at least on the ground, he was not nearly as efficient. Javonte Williams, 1.5 yards per carry last week, running against the Steelers front 7. So all that together, I mean, this is not an ideal matchup for him going into this week. And I think he's kind of been flirting with high numbers because of the situation, because of the matchups. We know what this offense wants to do, and this offense wants to run the ball. But another thing, too, is Justin Herbert's questionable going into this matchup. And that's that's also something to keep an eye on. So I think this is the week where JK Dobbins finally fades away, and we're no longer talking about him as the top 5 running back. So, Luke, what are your thoughts on this? Because it seems like you got something to say.
And I agree. If you're out without Justin Herbert here, I'm staying away from this whole offense entirely. So that's a caveat here. But I do want to ask you. I know obviously he was outsnapped by Gus Edwards last week, as you said. Do you think this week, in what should be a closer game, they're going to try and lean into Dobbins more? Do you think like his sort of 50-50 usage in the past couple of weeks has been, let's keep this guy healthy, this game's not close? Or do you think they're going to try and stick with that strict snap count?
I think the thing with Dobbins for me is that this offense needs to find its calling, and JK Dobbins has been the best part of that offense. So when the going gets tough, you try to go with what has worked, which has been JK Dobbins up to the point. And don't get me wrong, this offensive line has been stellar with the addition of Joe Alt, who has been one of the best offensive tackles in the entire league up to this point through 2 weeks. But at the same time, I just get worried that because you don't have this, like, we're finally going to see what this offense looks like when you don't have the receiving weapons to back it up. Because if they keep trying to force JK Dobbins the ball and they don't have a receiving threat to kind of take some of that pressure away, we're going to see, tackled for a loss. Stuffed at the line. Now it's 4th down. We got to punt again, like running when they shouldn't. That's kind of what I'm unfortunately expecting to see from this Chargers offense. Just an offense that commits too hard to the run against a defense that they just can't do that against. But Ian, what are your thoughts on the whole JK Dobbins shebang?
So with Dobbins, he is super efficient, and he has been, and I do think that efficiency goes down. I don't know if he goes away entirely, though I do have a lot of shares of Gus Edwards, and I personally appreciate that if that happens. The Justin Herbert thing seems like it was just an ankle injury. I think they're just probably being cautious with him. I'm excited to see them have to throw the ball more.
Yep. Their
passing concepts have looked good. Herbert has looked efficient. Quentin Johnson, potentially to the moon. I've dropped all of my shares of Josh Palmer. I know I was high on him. I sailed that ship and went right in for Quentin Johnson this week. He's getting those deep targets. He's getting the red zone targets. I'm excited to see them in a non-run first game script. This could be the first game where we see Herbert have to throw 30 plus more passes. And what does that volume look like? Who does he start targeting more? We could learn a lot about this offense this week, but I do actually agree that Dobbins probably takes a hit, but I don't know if I'm pessimistic on their offense in general.
Yeah, no, I could get that. And that's what I want to see too, because for a guy like Ladd McConkey, who for the first week saw a nice target share, and then last week we saw a little more of Quentin Johnston than I think anybody was really expecting. But the way to attack the Steelers defense is their secondary, because that's really one of their weaker points. Their corners, they don't have any shutdown corners. Their safeties, Minka Fitzpatrick, whatever is going on down there, they're not exactly playing their best ball right now. So if you have to attack them, you're attacking them deep, and Quentin Johnson might just be that guy. So Ian, who's your next guy?
So my next guy, I'm looking at Amari Cooper. And this is another guy that has not really performed super well up to the season. And I've seen some troubling metrics on his separation. But I've also seen him just being open and not getting the ball, or being open and it kind of being a somewhat errant pass from Deshaun Watson that he has to adjust to. And he ends up kind of losing focus and dropping it. But what we do know is he has a 21% target share and 17 targets over 2 weeks. That is sustainable volume. That is the volume that we expect from Amari Cooper, for the guy that puts up 1,000 yards every year. He's like an underrated version of Mike Evans, so to speak, in that way, that he feels like he hits about 1,000 yards every year, usually about 5 to 6 touchdowns. And this is the matchup to do it. So I'd say if he doesn't hit this week, it might be time to panic. But the Giants are allowing the 6th highest QBR for opposing quarterbacks, the 5th highest yards per attempt, and the highest completion percentage in the NFL this year. Everyone on the Browns should be up in your rankings, and specifically Amari Cooper should have a breakout game.
What's interesting is I was very close to making Jerome Ford actually one of my guys for this week. And I know Deontay Foreman had some run last week, which kind of scares some people off. But Jerome Ford for me is still the running back to own in this backfield until Nick Chubb comes back, if Nick Chubb ever comes back. But
actually deleted Ford's name to write Cooper for this blurb as well. So yeah, definitely keep Jerome Ford on your radar.
Yeah, for sure. I think he could be in for a pretty big week. Luke, who is your next guy going into this week?
Yeah, we'll travel to the Monday Night Football doubleheader to talk about Khalil Shakir. He was one of my biggest guys heading into the year. I have him in too many leagues to count. I think 7 out of my 10 leagues, I have Khalil Shakir. He was basically the first wide receiver I picked after my starting lineup was done in every single league. I was reaching for him left and right. People were like, why are you picking this guy so early? Because, he was a popular sleeper. But, I was picking him in like the 8th round, 9th round in my drafts, just getting him off the board so I knew I had him. And what I wanted to see from him, I think I started to see last week. Josh Allen only threw the ball 19 times last week against the Dolphins, and Shakir earned 5 of those targets. That makes me feel confident that going forward, he's going to be the guy that they look towards. He's even more so than Dalton Kincaid. Keon Coleman was basically eliminated from the game script last week, and Shakir got the looks that I wanted to see. He scored a touchdown week 1 as well. This week against the Jags, I don't think they're just going to fall over and die like the Dolphins did last week. The Jags are a somewhat competitive team. We saw them come back against Cleveland last week and almost do something at the end of the game. Didn't work out. But my point is that Jacksonville's defense can survive and keep them in the game. Their offense is good as well. I think this will be a decently close game. I think Allen's going to have to throw the ball more than 19 times, and I think those targets for Shakir are going to increase.
Huh. Okay. I was a big fan of Shakir as well. Going into the season, was never really a big Keon Coleman guy. But you don't have any thoughts on this Gabe Davis revenge game potentially from the Jaguars going against the Bills? I mean, that should be the biggest headline of this game, right? Like, we're talking about Gabe Davis here. Come on, guys.
I cannot believe we were fluked into drafting Gabe Davis so high last year, just in general. And I was high on him too. But don't talk about my Dalton Kincaid like that. He'll be back. No,
hey, I have shares with him as well.
Stand for the slander.
You know what's funny is in the beginning of last week's Bills game, I don't know if you guys saw, but it was like Kincaid was kind of like their catalyst to start each drive. It would to get the drive going, they would pass it to Kincaid in short space, let him get a few yards. Allen would keep going back to him, and then it would finally open things up for like Khalil Shakir and that kind of stuff. So interesting to see what kind of role he has going forward. His legendary run last year when Dawson Knox got hurt was really something special, but I guess we're just kind of holding on to that until we see something different.
I think the volume will be up, but I also think Shakir is sustainable. I am starting Shakir in one of my leagues as well. It's Josh Allen. He's not going to throw 19 times a game, too many more times this year. That there's enough targets to go between the two of them. And I think the only way that Coleman really gets any kind of value is if they're covering the middle of the field, taking away the routes for those guys. Allen will take his one-on-ones with Coleman. But if they're not there and they're giving him the middle of the field, Coleman's not going to see any targets. So I have him kind of scratched out of my head until he can put 2 good weeks together.
100%. So I'm going to go into my last player here, which is, interestingly enough, Brandon Aiyuk. It kind of before the season to talk about Brandon Aiyuk as someone you should consider starting would be kind of a crazy thought. But he has not produced the last 2 weeks. And unfortunately, with the way this offense is shaping up, they're going to have to rely on him in this game because no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel. It's looking right now like no George Kittle for this week. There has to be someone receiving the ball at some point in this offense. Brandon Aiyuk snaps went from 60% of the snaps in the first week, which again was a little bit more of a blowout game. And at the same time too, he was fresh off that holdout. He didn't get much practice in. Last week, he had 87% of the snaps. And he's got a great matchup against the Rams, who have been one of the worst secondaries in the entire league. I think right there with the Washington Commanders, as you mentioned before, Ian. They let Jameson Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. have the game of their lives against that secondary. For Brandon Aiyuk, for me, it's now or never. I think that money is going to have to start coming into play at some point. They're paying a shitload of money to be the guy in this offense. This is the week he finally does it. Start Brandon Aiyuk in all of your leagues this week. Any thoughts, rebuttal? I mean, like, and just one more thing too. What do you guys think about Juwan Jennings? Because a lot of the apps have Juwan Jennings at like a 11 or 12 point projection for this week. Personally, I don't like. He's a great blocker and he's made some plays here and there, but they're not going to run their offense through Juwan Jennings. It's going to be Jordan Mason. It's going to be Brandon Aiyuk, and we might see some Kyle Juszczyk. But what do you guys think about Jennings, and what do you guys think about Aiyuk?
I think Jennings is a touchdown dependent play, and the chances of that go up now that Debo's not there. But like 11 points feels really steep, and like you're setting yourself up for some disappointment. Sometimes the big apps, just anytime a player like shoots up their rankings, they just like I'm seeing Demarcus Robinson at 12 points projected in CBS, like more than like Deontay Johnson. It's like, based off what? He's done like 8.3 is his peak this year. Oh, he's just going to score 4 more than his peak. Like those projections, I don't understand them. I usually don't even pay attention to them. In terms of Aiyuk, he's too talented to fail. You're right in the way that if he does not play well this week, there's going to be some problems, and maybe you start to lower him on your weekly rankings. But I think he's too good of a receiver to fail, and I think it's a good matchup as well. So I agree with you.
Sweet. And Ian, you want to just lead into your next player here?
Yeah. So I have 2 here. So you guys tell me, do you want my bold take or do you want my less bold take?
We got to go bold. There's no reason to not go bold here. Come on.
I will shade to the less bold very quickly and just say, excuse me.
You're good.
Coming over a little illness. I flew Spirit on the way back from Chicago, and
yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Just raise all of the Saints players in your rankings this week. The Eagles have a bad defense. They let up a lot of big plays. Saints are good. My bold prediction, though, Chuba Hubbard. Lock him in. Starting lineup this week. Chuba Hubbard averaged 6.4 yards per attempt last week. Vegas are allowing the second highest yards per carry in the league right now at 6.1. They've also allowed the most runs of 20-plus yards and the most runs of 40-plus yards in the league. New quarterback. I don't know why I keep pounding this Panthers drum, but maybe it's going to work out. It's a good matchup for running backs, and maybe with the quarterback change, maybe there's a little bit more stability in there. Maybe they're at least closer so they don't have to fade the run game entirely. In a league where you need a flex, I think you could do a lot worse than Chuba Hubbard.
I like that. And you just keep pounding that Panthers drum. Eventually it'll make sense, right? Eventually it'll come true. Yeah.
I'm showing up in a Cam Newton jersey on the week that it actually does show up.
I was crazy. Okay, yeah. I mean, I like the Chuba call, and what's funny is I have a league where I have Joe Mixon, and it's not looking like he's going to play. So my options are Najee Harris, picking up Cam Akers and rolling that dice, which I really don't want to do, or Chuba Hubbard, who I was actually able to pick up off waivers. Someone dropped him to waivers, and I picked him up. And I think I might end up being Chubert just combine both of those. Chubert, I like that. I think he's Chubert now. I think this is kind of all right. Chubert, we're big Chubert fans over here.
Chubert Hooper, man.
Chubert Hooper. All right, Luke, who is your last guy to end this off?
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready for all the comments to tell me I'm stupid. I'm ready to be told to never speak ever again. I'm coming after Devonta Smith. I've been a Devonta Smith truther his whole career, basically. I loved him in the draft process, loved the landing spot. He's been great up until this point. I think he's an excellent receiver. I just don't have much faith in the Eagles without A.J. Brown. They haven't really shown me that they can win games without A.J. Brown. They seem to struggle every game he misses. They lost in the playoffs last year, and everybody kind of took that as a wow, the Eagles really suck. I'm sitting here thinking, why didn't they take that as a wow, the Eagles really need A.J. Brown? We saw it again last week. They lose to the Falcons, and Devonta Smith went off, to be fair. He had a great week. It wasn't enough, though. And granted, A.J. Terrell was in that backfield last week. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be in that backfield this week. But it's just a gut feeling here. I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to get Smith going as well as they did last week. Dennis Allen has been pretty solid this year as a defensive coach. We saw CeeDee Lamb score a long touchdown last week, but aside from that, he didn't get very involved. Obviously CeeDee Lamb is a tier above Devonta Smith. I don't know if Devonta is going to be able to break off that long touchdown. And if I'm Dennis Allen, I'm sitting in that coaching room all week thinking of ways to take Devonta Smith out of this game plan. Make the Eagles use Dallas Goedert, make them use secondary weapons, make them get Hurts running the ball, run Saquon into the ground. I'm taking away Devonta Smith. If they have to beat them with Jalen Hurts' arm, I'm not letting Devonta Smith beat me. It's going to have to be someone else. That's what I would do if I was in that room. The Saints have looked good. I think it's a possibility. I'm a little bit weary of Devonta Smith this week.
Does that raise up the value of guys like maybe like a Dallas Goedert or somebody like that to you?
I think Goddard could have a good week. Other guys, not so much. I don't really know who's going to get the ball. I mean, like Britton Covey got the ball a lot last week.
Yeah.
I think Goddard could be in line for a decent week. Yeah, but
okay, because I too think the Saints are going to blow them out. The Eagles defense allows a lot of big passing plays. And if it gets out of hand early, we could see another Kamara game script. If the Eagles try to go like a too high shell and take away Shaheed, it could be a massive week for Chris Olave. A big thing that the Saints like to do is they like to have Shaheed take the top off the defense, and then they have Olave run like a deep dig underneath him. And if the safeties are just going to commit to Shaheed, I could see Olave having, a very big week in terms of volume and yardage. So I think it's another week where the Saints might put up 40. And in that case, I think you should go onto the waiver wire and pick up any piece of the Saints offense you can find and then trade it for max value next week. I think that's the position we're in. I
made a trade, actually. I traded Ian. It's in, I believe, your league.
Yeah, I saw that. I forced it through yesterday.
Who was it? Rashid Shaheed and Brock Bowers for James Conner. I feel like my running back situation is not great. So I'll start by saying that. And tight end wise, I also have Trey McBride. So I had Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, gave up Rashid Shaheed and Bowers for James Conner. I was able to get Trey Benson off the waiver wire too, with a little bit of a handcuff. So I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like the magic for Shaheed has to run out at some point. I don't think he's going to give a long touchdown every single week. Obviously I love Bowers, but just, I have two guys and I need to make a move. So just reminiscing on a trade that I hope I don't feel bad about.
Part of me is like really starting to think like if Shaheed has another big week, like do we have to start considering him as like another one of those like my goodness. One of those like Tank Dell, Tyreek Hill type, and I don't want to put him in the same tier as Tyreek Hill, but just those guys that originally started off as like big play gadget guys that proved that they can hit those big plays at a high enough clip where we have to evaluate their efficiency and weigh that into how we rank them. Because I do think I thought of Shakir as kind of or Shaheed as a very like fluky big play guy. If it's there, I'm starting to change my opinion on that and think this might be a regular part of their offense. And he might be someone that you could consider starting. And if he has another big game, I might lean into that territory.
You know what's funny too? That makes me think of Deshaun Watson in his rookie year with Will Fuller. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like every week, Will Fuller, long touchdown. Every week, Will Fuller, long touchdown. And it's like, he can't keep doing this every week. I'm sure everybody's like, there's no way this happens again. And then for 7 weeks in a row, Will Fuller continued to get long touchdowns and put up insane fantasy points. And it wasn't until I believe Deshaun Watson tore his ACL that ended. Or it might have even been Will Fuller who got hurt, because as we know, Will Fuller had plenty of injuries. I don't exactly know in my head, but it did last for substantially longer than was to be believed with Will Fuller and Deshaun Watson together. So anything's possible with Rashid Shaheed, especially with the way this offense has been moving.
One thing that I look for, especially as like a player evaluator, is they've taken him off punt returns. Sometimes. That means they want him part of the offense. Like they put him back there when they need a big play. Now, who else has done that? Like Devin Hester never made it into the offense. He always stayed as a punt returner, meaning he was good at one thing. He was not like an elite playmaker outside of that. Guys like Tyreek Hill started off on punt team. They got moved off and they got put back there for big plays only.
Yep.
Shaheed is getting into that territory where he's starting to wean off of special teams and starting to be part of the offense. That's a big tell. When the coach says, take this guy off of, second quarter punts, that means like, I want this guy healthy for my offense. I want him out there. I want him getting more snaps. And he's succeeded in almost every role, running the football, deep throws. Yep. I don't know, man. He has my interest peaked.
Yeah, me too. For someone who has him as his wide receiver 4 in a league that we're all in together, it feels very nice, especially when you get points for return yards and all that stuff. It's been great.
I hate that you were right.
Essentially my wide receiver. But and hey, what did that say about Kyron Williams being put in punt return duties?
I was not happy about that.
No, but he seems to be getting the same workload, so I guess it's more of he's our best guy for it, so why not type deal. Or really just kind of expendable to where like, you know what, we're just going to use this guy. If he goes down, we got other guys who we like. So
I think that's the Rams way. It's like the efficient corporate offense of like next man up. I do not care if you get hurt. Like your name does not matter. Put on the Rams jersey and you're all just pawns. And that's kind of where like McVay's head at is, especially with like running backs. I really think they're like a heavy analytics team.
Yeah, I mean, McVay seems like one of those guys, so that does not surprise me. But that's going to do it. Thank you guys again for watching. As a reminder, I am Joe. Oh, it's backwards. It's all inverted. Oh, my God. Ian, you can follow him on Twitter at IanGridley_FFA. Luke, he's way over there. Ian, if you want to match my point to make like a little bit of a line here. Nope, other way. Nope.
Wait, what?
Not touching tips.
On my screen is the other.
Like,
now we're touching.
Extend my arm. Extend my arm. You got it. No, other way.
Well, that's how it looks on my screen. We're in a different order on your screen. We've got to be.
We're all messed up here, but Luke's over there somewhere. Follow him on Instagram, fantasyanalyst.luke or _. We still don't know. It'll be in the caption. And as a final reminder, check out Underdog. Use code ANALYST. They're going to match your first deposit up to $100. We put some of our Underdog picks up yesterday. Not sure how well they did. I'll be honest. I expected that game to look a little different. But definitely keep an eye on those for the future. We've had some pretty good hits in the past. So appreciate you guys joining, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.